Well, welcome everyone. This is Sundberg-Ferrar's virtual design conversations, and this is our third edition today. So we're really excited. We've got a great lineup planned out for you with 4 different speakers from across all different aspects of the creative supply chain. So we're really glad to have you here. For those of you who may not know, my name is Linnea Myers. I help with our marketing and communications here at Sundberg-Ferar, and I'm also an industrial designer. So, and I think most of you are familiar, but in case anyone is not, Sundberg-Ferar is a full-service product innovation studio based only here in Detroit since 1934, and we've been supporting all product categories from automotive and mobility to consumer products, medical equipment and devices, and beyond for all of those 86 years. So, and before we get to the main attraction here, I just want to walk you through a couple of things that you will want to know to make this experience the best that it can be today. So first thing, I wanted to draw your attention to the chat box. So if you wiggle your cursor on your Zoom screen, there should be a control panel at the bottom, and there should be a little icon there that says chat. If you go ahead and click on that, it'll open up the chat box. And this is going to be a really important tool for us today, because this is where I will be posting links and resources that have to do with what's going on today that you can go ahead and click on. But it's also, more importantly, where we'll take all of our Q&A during our time together. So this is meant to be very conversational. We get to pick the brains of these awesome thought leaders that are here. So we love to get your questions. That's the best part of this time. So go ahead, open that chat box, send us your questions as you think of them, and we'll answer those as we go. And you can even just test it out right now and send a little text in the chat box just to try it out. So one of those things that I will post in the chat box momentarily is our event page for today. So if you are wondering what's coming up next today in our virtual design conversations, or when your favorite speaker is going to be speaking, you can go to that event page, which I'll post in the chat box, and you can, all the information is there, so you know exactly how to navigate today. The next thing is actually another virtual event that we have coming up on June 10th, which is our SF Tonight show for industrial design thinking. And some of you may have been to this one before. It's a really fun time. It's kind of a free-form design hour, happy hour kind of thing, where you can just grab a cup of joe or whatever your drink of choice might be, take a load off, pull up a chair, and just get your design inspiration and ideas and stories that will motivate and inspire you for the month. So that's coming up as well. I'll post the link to that. And the final thing is social media. We would love to see you on our social media. You can stay updated on all of our latest ideas and events and resources there. So I will send the links to those as well. We'd love to get your follows or your likes, etc., etc. By the way, I just wanted to mention we got tons of questions from all of you leading up to this, and we're really thankful. We love your questions. And if today what you hear sparks any other questions that maybe we're not able to get to, feel free to send us an email. Even if you just want to talk more, I'll post GVEX and my contact info in the chat box as well. Okay, so those were the housekeeping things. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce GVEX, who is our host today and moderator. He is our fearless director of strategic growth here at Sundberg-Ferar. So I will turn it over to him. Take it away.
Thank you, Linnea. And I was really laughing really hard when you said, now before we go to the final attraction or the main attraction, this is not the attraction. We have 4 different speakers, line by line, for the main attraction as such. So thank you again for being here. It's an exciting day, at least for us right now. The next 4 hours are just going to be really beautiful. We have really amazing experts with their passion and their perspective coming up and sharing what they have learned throughout their career as such. So before we begin there, I just want to make a slight kind of an ricochet an idea with you. We all, I think, are going to become like this. This is just a shell. It's literally a crab shell, I would say. So you almost have seen Hermit the crab or any crabs as such. They always go around with their cocoon around it. I was talking with another friend of mine. And right now we all are in this 9th or 10th week of lockdown, right? And we still are earning or urging to go outside and enjoy somewhere. But it's very difficult to go somewhere, right? Because right now the campgrounds are open. But if you still go and get your own tent and with your own family and tent over there, still you have to go to the public restrooms as such, right? So I think the main thing is you can carry your own restrooms with you, and that's what would be your caravan or your house, mobile home, or your trailer, kind of a camping trailer as such. So we literally, in a way, for the next few months, if not for the eternity, we'll be moving around with our shell with us, right? Means I want to go and let's say hello to my friend somewhere in Acadian National Forest. I'll just jump in my caravan. I don't have a caravan. Maybe I should buy one. And I can go around as long as I can have my own place to stay, my own place, let's say, for restrooms, and my family is always safe and not touching things here and there. I think the entire mobility world, if it changes to the world of mobile homes as such, that will be pretty interesting. I'm not saying it, I'm just saying this might be one of an trajectory where we all go around with kind of a cocoon with us. We already are doing that, right? Means when we get our backpack with us, we always nowadays have water bottle. Eventually, we will always have with a water bottle and sanitizer thing, maybe a toilet paper holder. I don't know. I think the crazy world is still on. By the way, if anybody wants to seek out ideas or let's say consult us with the merging of water bottles and sanitizers and all those things, that's an amazing world to be. So the thing is, right now we are still going on with kind of this small cocoon with us, a backpack as such. If we enlarge that cocoon to get a family together and camp out or bug out for 3-4 days and come back, we can still survive for a few months more as such. By the way, seriously, if the sales of the campers is going, it's not going as high as the alcohol sales right now, but it's pretty going sky high. I mean, if you are on the fence or if you were always on the fence to buy a newer camper or something, this is the time. You can still be in completely safe mode and still go around as much as you can. Like fuel also is pretty cheap right now. So I think that would not be a pretty big kind of an hole in the pocket. So that just thought came in the mind about us all being trying to get our homes on our back and still enjoy going around and being a social animal as such. Just wanted to get that thing off and share with you. And there will be plenty of elements like this as we go forward with, as Lanea was saying, at least I do now focus on the on our, let's say today's virtual design conversations. It's getting amazing experts together and just talking about things near and passion to their hearts as such. They all represent different companies, different categories, and they have learned and amassed lots of nuggets of wisdom. And today we will just try to uncover some of them and see how we can make them useful or apply in our everyday life, in our homeschooling life or work life or something beyond as such. So we have an amazing panel as such. I think we already have our first speaker, Keith. If you want to unhide and unmute yourself, we'd like to welcome you to the stage, this amazing virtual stage that we have. Awesome. So Keith, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. How about you?
Well, I'm never better. I'm looking forward to this particular day in every month where I get to share the stage with some amazing people that I like, I love, and I know you can share a lot of things to the world as such. So how have you been doing? What I think I'm going to ask you a question that you may or may not be ready to talk more about it, but I heard you had a wedding, a quarantine wedding.
That's right. That's right.
Congratulations. I want to know something more. I have heard about this quarantine birthday parties or something, but a wedding, quarantine wedding. Can you enlighten us a little bit about things went right? Things went not right?
Yeah, things went well. I mean, ideally, our original plan was to get married on a beach. Obviously that, with travel and large groups of people being banned, we stayed home. We did it in the house. We set up our sunroom at the back of our house, like a little chapel, had a very small ceremony there at the house. And we had family and friends join on a Zoom call. So it was a very prototypical, what's going to be now a 2020 typical experience of, virtual gatherings. So, but it turned out great. We had a really nice day. The weather turned out for us. So we got, some nice pictures as well. So it turned out great.
Awesome, man. Once again, congratulations. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we weren't going to let this situation change our plans. So
Yep,
we adjusted, we pivoted, but we still had
I
a.
like your eyes were on the vision. The vision has to be done there. You always have to access
That's
the
right.
plans as such. What I was thinking about, I know, I was born in India. Over there, a typical average marriage might be 800, 900 people at a ceremony, right? That's how Indian weddings are. It sometimes, most often, it goes beyond 2,000 also. But over here, I think we always have a limitation of how much people we can have. But since it was a Zoom call, did you invite all your relatives? Because nobody need to come, right? Did you expand your recipients who could come and bless you?
No, I think we still kept it. We still kept it small, relatively small. I mean, certainly, it was good. We could get family and friends that were in other states that maybe wouldn't have been able to make the trip. So in a way, it worked out well.
Awesome.
So yeah.
People go eventually in the presentation and a topic we have at hand. But what do you do for fun, Keith? Let our audience know what excites you. What are your let's say weekend kind of an activities as such?
Yeah, sure. So taking a cue from you, I added a few things to my environment here.
Yeah.
So some of my hobbies, working for a tire company, it's hard not to love cars and to love driving. I also, I'm trying to learn how to play guitar. It's something I started many years ago, and it's always something that I wanted to get back to. So I'm trying to pick that up again as well. And mountain biking is something that I love very much. So I like to mountain bike, not in the shape that I used to be. So I might transition to something more like canoeing, where there's less pedaling up hills. But yeah, those are some of my hobbies, things I do for fun.
Outdoors person, mountain biking, canoeing, bike helmets. That's pretty interesting. I'm completely lame in the world of musical instruments. I did a little bit of drumming earlier, Indian drums, not the typical conventional drum sets as such, but that was my foray a little bit into the musical world. Awesome. I know we have a small topic in front of us, and I think I can make you a presenter and you can share your screen. We can go through that kind of slides, and then we can open it for Q&A, and we can see what our audience wants.
Okay, sounds good. Okay.
Yep, we can see the screen.
You can see my screen. All right, very good. Okay. All right, so again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to everyone today. My name is Keith Dumigan. I'm the manager of the design studio for Bridgestone Americas. So the topic of this talk is the evolution of industrial design. So to speak about evolution, I think we first need to start with a previous state of some kind. So early in my career, when people would ask me, Keith, what is industrial design anyway? I would say things like, it's the design of products that you use every day, or it's product design, or it's like architecture only for products. I liked that one because people seem to know what an architect did and seem to think that it was a pretty cool profession. So that one worked well for me. I would also describe industrial design as designing for both form and function. I would describe it as being part art, part marketing, and part engineering. And these were things that people could relate to a little more easily. So these descriptions were fairly decent, but really many things have changed since I first started in the industrial design field. In fact, I think it's interesting to take a quick look at how industrial design has evolved since the early days and the birth of the profession. So first, I want to apologize to anyone on the call that might be somewhat of a design historian. I don't claim that this slide is historically accurate, but I do hope that it allows me to make a few points on how much design has changed over time. So bear with me. If you would consider a timeline from when the term industrial design was first used until today, here are a few of the milestones or major shifts that occurred that I feel are relevant. And of course, our design tools and methods have also evolved over the times as new technologies have become available. So since the early days of industrial design, and famous designers like Henry Dreyfuss, Raymond Loewy, and others, and including firms like even Sundberg-Ferar, who started back in this time frame and maybe worked with some of those designers. Anyway, the designers of this time, they took the issues and the technologies that were relevant of the day, and they created products that people desired. They created forms that were attractive and functional. They made them beautiful and useful objects, and they made them different than the competition. So fast forward to more modern times, and you have widespread use of consumer electronics, the personal computer, the internet, products like iPhones and iPods. These products adopted and actually advanced the technology of the day to create the artifacts that define a generation. And since then, progress in technologies, related technologies like big data, the Internet of Things, and data as a service, these things continue to pave the way for change in more and more product and service areas. In the future of mobility, for an example, we're looking at a future with mobility as a service and autonomous vehicles and even case vehicles. Overall, there's more technology, there's more competition for companies, there are more designers and more design specialties, and overall consumer expectations for what a product should do just continue to also increase. So, as a result of the evolution of so many things, the process that a company takes to create a new product has also evolved and become more complex. So most companies today believe they have a clear vision or a North Star of what they want to be in the market or in society. And when it sets out to create a new product, it also has a product development process that it will follow. So hopefully it doesn't look exactly like this, but nonetheless, it has some kind of a development process that it goes through. So first, we'll take a look at the stages or the tasks of the industrial designer in this hypothetical product development process. So these steps start and end with a focus on the end user and to create, and socialize, and deliver on a user-centered design strategy. So collaboration and cross-functional design reviews are really important in this because others within the organization need to understand, value, and support your user-focused design strategy in order for you to succeed as a designer. So even after the product launches, you'll want to confirm how well you met customers' demand and probably what you would want to do differently the next time when it comes time to develop the next generation of that product. Now, on the other side of this diagram, and perhaps what I'd like to call out for any less experienced designers that might be on the call, what you should realize is that at the same time, during this process, there are numerous other strategies and processes at play, both during and after product launch. All of these things are necessary, real elements that are necessary for running a business. In addition to these inside forces, there are also outside forces outside of the control of the company that it must deal with. And all of these issues are also evolving continuously. So at times, these forces may seem like they're a threat to your user-based design strategy, but fear not. Because the point here is that as designers, we need to keep these forces in mind when we create and execute a design strategy. The design strategy should be based on reliable insights or evidence, and it should be easy to articulate so that it can be defended or so that you are ready to pivot or adapt and just be agile as things change, because they will. Finally, my message here is that as a designer or especially as a design leader, you must attempt to understand and embrace these opposing forces. One, they're not going away, but more importantly, they can act as productive design constraints, and they may actually help you identify opportunities for breakthrough ideas. And in my opinion, as designers, we need to evolve to that level of sophistication to manage the complexity that we're forced to operate in today and going forward into the future. Frankly, this next point is not something that was in my original outline for this presentation, but it's something that I would regret if I did not include it in some way, and it's the increasing importance of co-creation. So the majority of products and product ecosystems of tomorrow are going to be built upon the ideas and infrastructure and data that's owned, operated, and created by multiple organizations. Luckily, the leaders of organizations of all sizes today already understand and accept that partnership and co-creation are necessary to compete in the future. So luckily, co-creation is not a new idea for industrial designers. We've long created new to the world products together with users to ensure that we uncover unarticulated needs and that we actually achieve some intended user benefit. Industrial designers, in my opinion, need to play a key role in helping leaders and strategists uncover new synergies between organizations that, when combined creatively, that we can deliver new to the world products and solutions that create benefit for multiple organizations and for society as a whole. And I think as designers, we can really add to that process. So now I'd like to come back to this original framework. Mm-hmm. So when people ask me today, Keith, what is industrial design? I might say things like, well, it's user-centered design, or it's design for the human experience, or maybe it's designing products and services to create solutions for people. It's kind of long-winded, but I think that's more of the flavor of today. It's still about art and marketing and engineering, but it's also about many more things today, like design thinking and designing, helping to define the value proposition, designing for sustainability and the design of user interface and user experience. On top of that, now that there are more and more people interested in design and design-related issues, we find ourselves teaching and coaching others on design thinking. We find ourselves coaching engineers how to design for appearance and to be more aware of user perception, working with strategy teams to do things like journey mapping. No doubt, this is an exciting time to be an industrial designer. I have no regret that I didn't study to become an architect. Architecture is still a great profession, and people understand it, and they still think it's cool. But I think it's also very cool to be an industrial designer. It's much easier to describe these days. It's also great to be a UX designer or any of the other design specialties that I may have actually described here today. In fact, I'm willing to bet there's a couple of rock star designers on this call that do a little bit of all of these elements here that I've talked about. Let's do a quick recap. So how has industrial design evolved? Many of the early industrial designers, I think, were primarily stylists. They would design how something that's already manufactured, they would define how that should look. Now, I think most modern industrial designers are more human-centered and more multi-dimensional designers. They practice design thinking to explore questions like, who is our user? What are their challenges, needs, wants, and desires? And what might we create to help that user? Then they should understand and contribute to defining the business case and the value proposition by posing questions like, how might this fit within our business strategy? Or how might we make money at this? How might we monetize this? And is the result of that still valuable to the end user? I think we have a real value, a real ability to help teams with questions like these during the process. And finally, modern designers, they still design to answer questions like, how should it work? How should we make it? And of course, what should it look like? That's of course still part of the process. So one last slide. So what do I think is the opportunity for designers? So designers naturally have access to a unique set of abilities to listen and create and test and tell convincing stories of what should be created in order to better serve people. Designers have to develop and evolve their skills of experimenting with, not just design, but with new and uncomfortable concepts in business or in relationships and contacts and collaboration, to stretch themselves into new conversations and roles to help companies reinvent what they make and why they make it. designers can help marketing and business strategy teams to hear and see new things. This is true. And when we can do that, we can influence the strategic path of the organization. And that, I believe, is the ultimate design project and our largest opportunity as designers. So,
awesome.
thank you.
That was amazing, Keith. Means in the world of webinars, you did not hear the applause or people from the stage as such. So we have to assume that. That's pretty interesting framework. Means I like your telescoping kind of an artwork there from start till finding your North Star, and the way you were talking about the opposing forces, the inside forces and the outside forces. So, and we can just curiously as such, do these inside forces depend on how big or small the company is, or what is, let's say, the corporation's understanding of and the value of industrial design? Have you seen any correlation between the size of a company, like a small company, medium company versus an enterprise company, and their adoption propensity of how they can use industrial design thinking as a strategic function?
So, within my career, I've worked for a variety of different companies, both large and small, but it's still always been on the corporate side of design. And I think the larger the organization, naturally, the more people that are involved, the more teams and possibly teams across different locations. So I think that collaboration, it becomes so key. I think and it really depends a lot too about the leadership within the different organizations, how aware and open they are to things like to the value that industrial design can bring, and socializing that is part of the process.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting point about not just using marketing for the outside world, but how to make sure you socialize the impact or the benefits of what design can do inside a company too. I think we had a question there more loosely about in the world of mobility. So can you tell us a little bit more about the changes in the world of mobility, the area where your company is a part of the entire huge system over there?
Sure. Yeah. So in the world of mobility, there's going to be more change in the next 10 years than there has been in the last 100 years, and that's something that a lot of experts have been talking about. And I also mentioned in my slide previously the emergence of case vehicles.
Yeah.
And that stands for connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. So these vehicles are expected to become more and more common over the next few decades. But this is a very dynamic situation, as you can imagine. And it's not just based on the technology, but it's also government regulations and safety and insurance and so on, so many different factors. So I don't believe that anyone is completely sure how and when all that will unfold, but it's certainly, there's certainly a lot of things at play, and there's going to be a lot of changes on the horizon.
So in the world of mobility world, means we have a question there with this, let's say, no matter what, we are in this COVID pandemic as such. So right now, based on our fear factors, how is the shared driving movement experience disrupted? I know it's not an easy question, but what are your thoughts about it? Means I think most of the heavyweights in this world are trying to think about that, but from your perspective, this fear factor that we are in, how strong?
Yeah. I mean, personally, I've wondered the same things. I would expect that in the short term there is going to be some people rethinking things and maybe a little bit of a slower process. But I think over time, I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll get through this and that we'll be able to get back on track. I think things like making sure that any shared vehicle is cleaned properly and things like that. Some of those things I think will continue to be more top of mind. but I think while we'll see some short-term slowdown, I personally I think it'll level out in time.
And hopefully that's the case. Trying to put some analogous stories together, like in the world of hoteling right now, it's not the same norm everywhere, but some of them, including I think Airbnb also is, what they're doing is trying to maintain 48 hours or 36 hours in between renting, let's say, a room from one family to other families. So apart from the cleaning or the deep cleaning that should happen after your family vacates the room, they just are giving a completely 48 hours soak time for any viruses to float away or die away as such. So maybe in their world, that might be a pretty good way to stage in and get people occupying the rooms again. It's a pretty, it's really hard. But I'm just trying to think from our perspective, or let's say Lyft or Uber or ride sharing or ride hailing perspective. The entire business model belongs to, like, I just picked up this passenger, dropped him or her over there, then somewhere else, then somewhere. Everything is frequency and more churn based rather than overnight kind of and based, right? Means no matter what in the world of industry, hoteling industry, it's one unit is one night at least. Over here, we still have to think. I don't have an answer right now how that world would completely change. But I think the element there would be how long this imprint would remain in our minds, right? Some imprints would remain for generations. Some might just be for a few months, and you're back again to gas guzzling cars versus, let's say, electrical cars. But it will be interesting to see how those things come up. Another question, I think you mentioned the DaaS, right? The data as a service. Can you expound more on that? That's a pretty amazing topic itself.
Yeah, sure. So data as a service, that's about collecting and utilizing data, sometimes in real time to individualize or add extra value to a user based on their preferences or some set of circumstances that that data can advise on. Data as a service is something that's already all around us today. It's what allows things like Spotify to create custom playlists, or based on your personal preferences. It's used by stores to connect shoppers with products and services that they're more likely to want, or it's used to help stores stock certain products based on some outside forces. It would be nice if they could have used something like that to help better predict the demand for toilet paper in this pandemic times. But our ability to collect data is growing immensely, right? And there's already.
Do you want to go to the slide where you had that data as a service? I think it was in the trajectory curve as such, right? For people to have a visual. I love the Indy car over there, but it might just help before we come to the car story also.
Sure.
I think it was slide 3 or 4, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
Oh, sorry, I did not want to disturb your flow of thought.
Okay. I temporarily couldn't find my my Zoom taskbar here. So.
Oh, that's okay. Don't worry.
All right. Are you able to see? You're able to see this screen now, I think, over here.
We are seeing Indy 500. Oh, now we can see the screen. Yep.
Okay.
That's the graph.
So you were talking about this slide here.
That's where you see in around 2000-ish, we have the DaaS and the IoT and the IOOT. So just makes a visual for our audience also. Sorry.
Yeah. I think I've messed that one up. Yeah. So here, so data as a service. And one thing about data as a service, I think, for designers, it may not be obvious right at the beginning of how can an industrial designer add value in this space? But when it comes to data as a service, there's already so much data out there that the key point now is, now that we're able to access more and more data, and we're able to have more and more sensors and collect more data, the key point is identifying the data that's truly meaningful. So, and I think as designers, we can help teams that may be able to go collect data, but to use things like design thinking and human-centered design to help identify what are the things that would really add value to somebody's experience, and then be able to work with teams so that they can focus in on collecting the right data and analyzing the right data. And another area of that too is data visualization. So once this data is collected, designers can help transfer that data into visuals so that people can easily interpret what's meaningful and then take action on that data, because it's presented in a way that people can easily understand. So while you don't necessarily have to be a programmer, but you can work with programmers to be able to make the data more meaningful, and you can get to something that's meaningful more quickly.
That really makes sense. Means data itself, means some of the world, when they say data and make use of data, they think of only Facebook data or the Big Brother data as such. It's not every data has to be a bad stigma associated with it. There is really good functional, efficient elements that you can siphon out or glean out when you are in the market and use it to build, as you say. I think your earlier kind of a methodology of industrial design ends in the relaunch of the next one. I think every product, every biggest innovation company, just like yours, I think they define their end product as their next work in progress prototype, and then you go to the next one and the next one. That's pretty interesting to look at.
Mm-hmm.
The element that you also mentioning is pretty interesting, means DaaS, data as a service. But just looking at the word service, coming back to the successfulness of a company, or people define success the way their business defines it, right? Means when it comes to a design thinking, we might say it's a 3-element together. It's a successful hardware part of it. I would form, function, ergonomics, everything built into that. The other part typically would be the digitization, the digital twin of it, eventually having I would say, fork into the DaaS. But the last part is still the service. I would say the servicetization of the product itself, rather than selling a product, selling the entire service. That's a pretty big one. And eventually, if we get people in a right way hooked onto it, it creates it takes the entire mental, I would say, not agony or the mental power from the OEM to a service industry or an expert industry as such. Does your industry, the tire industry, are actually right now selling service rather than selling products? Is your category already doing that?
Oh yeah. So service has long been a big part of our business, and that's actually there's many different avenues for that. In the area that most people are familiar with as drivers is the tire and service centers. So it's not only tire sales, but it's automotive service, and things like oil changes. And so we have over 2,200 company-owned stores. So serving everyday customers is always part of the business. So it's not just the manufacturing. It's not just the tires for new vehicles, the OEM equipment, vehicles or tires, but it's also the tires and the service direct to the customers. And so yeah, the service end to the end user customer has long been a part of the business, and finding ways to use data to make that process and that service better, make that experience better is a big part, is a big thing for Bridgestone. But then also on the commercial side, in different areas of the commercial business, say the trucking industry, things like last mile delivery, long haul trucking, even mining and agriculture, all of those different industries. There's different products and different service that they need and that we can provide, based on very, very different work environments and requirements and needs that they have. So yeah, service is a big piece.
I can imagine the complexity in the world of mining industry or airplane industry, where it's highly crucial to to the actual tonnage of material removal or number of flights landing, and those kind of elements or those kind of markers to understand what is the most good indicator for that business, right? Rather than just
right.
look at the product, what are your, let's say, pegging points to define the success of the business or grow the business, and how, let's say, a supplier or a company like you can come in and just take the entire headache or the burden off from that complete industry or the system and saying, don't worry about anything else. We will entirely look at it, the management, the inventory, the data, and the use of it. That's a pretty interesting way to look at the servicetization. We are just a new word over there.
Yeah, in some of the commercial areas, we sell the tires, but we service them. We monitor tires in out in the field when, say, vehicles come in for the evening or in between trips, helping to monitor the wear of their tire, the health of their tire, and really make sure that they're able to maximize their uptime, because that's direct profit for them. So helping them manage all of their assets, their vehicles, but also their tires, and make sure that they're maintained on a regular basis. That adds real value for them, because it allows them to continue to be using their trucks to continue to deliver and make money.
Yeah, make money is pretty interesting. But I just realized, means no matter what, wherever the world of mobility goes, it might be internal combustion engine, electrical machines, Uber, Lyft, every vehicle would have a tire. Means, right? It's. I think you're in a pretty safe way. Wherever the industry pivots, tires will be needed. I think the rolling motion will always be successfully needed than the walking motion as such. We have a couple of other questions coming in. What is the most interesting / exciting repurposed application for Bridgestone product afterlife? That's pretty interesting. Means you mentioned in your I think in your domain of sustainability, and I would say ecosystem kind of an ode to it. Are you doing any repurpose applications for Bridgestone products afterlife?
Repurpose. So one big area of activity for our company is retreading. So particularly in commercial trucking, long haul trucking, we have a company, part of our company called Bandag. They do retreading for tractor or trailer type vehicles. We have service centers, Bandag service centers, where the top part of the tread is actually ground off, and you reuse the body of the tire, the casing of the tire, put a new tread on it, and that brings a lot of value. It's a good way to conserve resources, natural resources, and so that's probably the easiest example that I can think of in terms of reuse.
Like as designers, when we were sketching anything, it might be a playground too. We will just make a small kind of an call out and say, everything here is repurposed, retreaded tires. So when as kids fall, they will be a little bit more safe and all those elements. So
sure.
Does a company as big as you, means in your entire process of design thinking, I think in the second last emblem, it showed plenty of bubbles and plenty of areas where industrial design is evolving. Do you also heed to or reach out to this other industries who are going to chop up your tires and use it for safety measures? Do you also use data? I mean, when you say about DAS, to help that second life or third life itself, or it becomes too complex then?
Well, I know we have outside partners that, in terms of reground material and repurposing, there's a lot of different avenues and areas there. One example that comes to mind, I'm not sure if we're still doing this, but we had a rubber plantation in Liberia. And on the rubber plantation, they actually have large fields of these rubber trees. And when the trees were no longer productive for the the resource that goes into rubber, they would actually repurpose and reuse that wood and make furniture. So
Wow.
there's an example of reuse that probably is not something you would have seen. So
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Means you are so vertically integrated, like you actually own rubber plantations till the end of, let's say, that's pretty interesting. That's means
yeah,
very less companies do that. That's pretty, it helps
yeah.
the business case,
Right.
arguably.
Yeah, we actually have activity underway to look for other sources for natural rubber. We actually have a what's called waiuli, is a desert shrub that
How do you spell
grows
it?
out. It's called waiuli. It's a
Wow.
desert shrub.
Okay.
And there's actually activity underway, and we've actually made some very good progress. And actually, this activity dates back to, I think, Thomas Edison. This is something that he was working on back in his day. Is looking for other ways to naturally create rubber. So we have farms and processing plants for working on how to get rubber from this other type of plant that we can actually grow here in the United States.
That is pretty interesting. Means you mentioned Edison, and I think at that time Edison and Henry Ford, they were buddies together. I would say, but talking
Right.
about Henry Ford, at that time Ford actually itself had vertically integrated kind of an OEM. They actually at that time had owned, I don't know whether they still own or not, rubber plantations to literally take care of their tires as such. And maybe I do not know where Ford stands right now, but it's interesting. As an industrial designer, you literally span right from the start, like cradle to grave kind of a thing. So in a way, I'm glad you can eventually try to, as you're saying, rightly connect and socialize internally to see where design can add very meaningful elements of the entire thing. I am so
Yeah,
happy,
with a footprint as large as ours, not only in the U.S. but globally, there's so much opportunity for design. Yeah, certainly more than we can handle. But over time, the more areas that I'm able to work with and impact is, it's plenty of opportunity. So
that is real sustainability. By the way, the latest questions that came from Jason Belair, he is a good friend, and he's also actually chairing a conference in a couple of weeks on sustainability. I know he already has his speakers and everything lined up, but eventually I should at least connect you with him to see whether you can exchange any thoughts about sustainability as such. Thanks, Jason, for that specific question. I have the questions are coming in too, but I'm just very curious. Maybe let's go with the questions first, and then we can go on the curiousness as such too. When you mention about the journey mapping for where you stand in the entire ecosystem, how crucial it is to you, the entire fact of journey mapping and the extent of it.
Yeah. So journey mapping for us has been a great way to have our designers engage with other areas across the organization, to be able to use design thinking and design thinking tools to help people understand the customer in new ways, and by taking a walk in their shoes. We've done workshops with various internal and even external teams too, to introduce methods and tools of journey mapping, as well as applying them to help the teams assess the customer experience across all the steps and touch points from end to end. This activity really helps confirm where our strengths are within our organization, and as we interact with customers, but it also helps us uncover areas for opportunity. And I think what's been really interesting as we've done this, it's the ability to help teams see, to help the teams identify blind spots where they think they knew this area pretty well, but they come to realize that, we don't really understand how this stage in the process, what's happening behind the scenes or backstage from the customer's perspective. And it allows, it allows teams, whether it's customer service or sales or different teams, to be able to realize, hey, let's take a little action here and learn more about this. And being able to be a part of those types of discussions and help those teams in this way, using using design thinking tools, it's been very eye-opening, and it's been just a great experience for us to be able to work across more and more of the organization.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. By the way,
Mhm.
some of our participants are sending the links of that desert rubber plant that you mentioned.
Hmm.
I've never imagined how to spell that particular name. Coming back to your presentation, you mentioned about the ability of co-creation, especially in this evolving world of industrial design. It is not just an artifact; it's an integrative system as such. So, how are you embracing co-creation, and how do you sell co-creation inside a company like yours?
Yeah. So at Bridgestone, we're highly focused on co-creation. As a global company, we have a long history of partnering with a lot of different companies, OEMs for original equipment makers like Ford, Honda, Toyota, all the automotive companies. We also partner with many fleets and suppliers, our own suppliers, and then automotive service centers, retailers, and the list goes on. And as this world of mobility continues to evolve and shift, Bridgestone is going to continue to build the relationships needed to bring value to society and to help these companies achieve the future of mobility. And that through that partnership and co-creation is we realize that that's just such a key point to the future. So that's a big focus for us. So
I'm glad you are that industrial design glue as such to bring all these different forces to the table. Means I think he was one of our speakers for our last VDC, Owen. At one time I was on stage and I was talking about like industrial designers, we need to act, we need to rise, and we need to find a chair at the boardroom table. And he literally, in nice way, let's say, shouted from the public saying, no, we do not need a chair. We are the table in that boardroom. We get the entire chairs together of branding and strategy and planning and operations together as such. And I think going through what you are explaining about how you understand and get the play of industrial design together, you are actually creating that table where all everybody pulls their chairs and try to interact with that. That's pretty interesting. Still, I believe the fact was I came here 19 years ago to the USA. I think as earlier you mentioned about what is industrial design, I was having a really hard time in India and telling people, what do I do? I'm an industrial designer. Like, what do you do? Do you design factories? And no, design is ergonomics, and design is usefulness and usability and beauty all built together. And I was going mad, literally. I'm still mad, I would say, but frustrated in explaining what is industrial design. The name is a misnomer. We understand that, but we cannot change it right now. But I thought my answers will be my questions will be completely annihilated when I come to the US. But still, Keith, we go around, we are a design studio, we espouse industrial design thinking, and we talk about what it can bring to their life. But still we go around and people are still like, what is industrial design? So it is evolving. As your second slide with all this bubbles showed, it is evolving into a complete different diaspora. All those things are so beneficiary elements that we already had to the table, but now everybody is getting a unique nomenclature to it. But it is still difficult to start a conversation like, who are you? I'm a chemist. That's it. People know Steve is a chemist. Over here, like, who are you? Industrial designer. Like, okay. If they say, okay, we have to ask them, like, can I explain more about what I mean by industrial design? People say like, now I know. So it's in your world. In your world, let's say, in a way, you're not doing products like Jonathan Eves as such. You're doing products which are, let's say, not necessarily in the highest aesthetical world. How do you grapple with this, if at all, this kind of a conundrum?
In terms of describing
what industrial design is? Your responsibilities inside your company, at least, not outside. Does it happen, or is it like everybody it's a pretty big company, they exactly know if they have like, as you explained, this entire systemic elements of sustainability and data and all those things, if somebody somewhere on the field has a question, do they immediately know like, oh, there is a department here that I have to just tell them? Is it that mature or it's still coming up in your industry, not necessarily your company?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think within the industry, you know, there are certain categories of product where there are more users, there are more extreme users, right? Say the buyer of high performance tires. Say somebody who has a Corvette or a Ferrari or a Porsche, they're much more aware of their tires, and much more you know, much more in tune with how that product adds or complements the look of their vehicle. The same thing with people who, you know, that you see a lot more trucks and SUVs on the road today,
yeah.
And a lot of tires that have that more aggressive off-road look. So there are certain categories of product where the industrial design does play a key role.
Yeah.
And in our you know, in our industry, that tie between form and function, every detail, there is some performance trade-off. So it's a highly precise area of design, and you have to be able to wear both hats very often, yeah, to be able to you know, see your original concept through to production, and helping, you know, one of our big roles is understanding what marketing and, you know, what the organization and sales and marketing is trying to communicate with a certain product. What's the value proposition? What's the selling story for this product? And help that product not only perform but be perceived in a way that aligns with that message for that product.
I love that.
You know, we have to differentiate from our competitors, and you know, and worry about intellectual property. There's a lot of that goes into the work as well. So
that's pretty interesting, and I like the way you explained that about what are you really trying to communicate to your end consumers. When, as you mentioned in your first slide, the increasing in higher consumer expectations, how to be on the touch of that, and make sure you squeeze that into the product, and actually designing it, all the sipings and everything on a tire. It's pretty complex, and how to balance. It's just like designing the sole of a shoe. We were designing the sole of a shoe for Wolverine, another Michigan company. Nowadays, when you buy a shoe, any shoe, you will look at the sole and then buy it. As it may be performance related or not, but you look at the sole. 20, 50 years ago, not 50, 30 years ago, you were not even concerned about that. So you're right. It's everything matters, including aesthetics in that area too. We have questions just coming in. There's a question from Dr. Rao, RAO. How industrial design can, so now it's not just mobility world, we are coming back to the industrial design elements and such. How industrial design can handle mass customization?
How industrial design can handle mass customization?
Yeah. So think about everyday products, might be a toaster, lawnmower. I mean, it's not necessarily tires right now, but how can industrial design in the moving world can handle mass customization, or maybe a later stage or prior stage mass customization?
Yeah, well, I think there's long been examples of like Nike making shoes with custom colors and combinations of colors and fabrics. You know, that's one example that quickly comes to mind. I think with 3D printing, I think we're going to see a lot more that's going to be possible in terms of mass customization with 3D printing, the ability to make customized components. Or you know, surface textures, maybe different form factors, and to be able to do those on site. You know, not everything now has to be made in the manufacturing plant. You know, with the ability to 3D print in a variety of different materials, I think that's a big you know, empowering factor for mass customization.
Yeah,
plus
I think
there's more and more, you know, 3D design tools as well are more accessible now. So I think between software and 3D printing, there's a lot more capability.
It's more like, means as we went with your curve, right? Means in 20s and 30s, we were trying to use the industrial revolution and then the industrial design of those products to make sure it can be mass produced in any way. But I think now the more pertinent way is how to still do that, and then in the later stage how you can still do the personalization as such. So both of them can go hand in hand. I know we are almost at the top of the hour, but let's take actually 2 or 3 questions more. One is from Gerard. What is the best industrial design or one of the best industrial design collaboration process while working remotely, more pertinent to the world we are in right now? Anything that's working in the world of remote collaboration of designers?
Well, let's see. Obviously, the ability to have as much communication as we can have now with video conferencing, that's certainly a huge thing. We're also working on ways to brainstorm virtually. So looking at different ways to do what we would normally do in the office with a whiteboard wall and tons of Post-it notes. How can we reproduce the kind of quality interaction that we would have if we were all together in a room? How can we try to reproduce that quality virtually? So I think that the tools are out there, but what are they? Where are they? What are the best tools to use? That's something that I'm in the process of trying to sort through now.
That's very interesting, and everybody's trying to, I would say, handle or tackle that element with a couple of tools on the net. Mural is coming out to pretty strong one. There is another one just as toned as Mural or Murai or something. So I think the tools help, but no matter what, the internal chemistry of the team working should have already been set before 2 or 3 months, so they understand who the team is, and then you can rightly connect with that and use it more and more. There are a couple of more questions too, but I always wanted to ask this or understand this. This is one of your competitor, Michelin tires, I would say. And the way they started many decades ago by coming out with the maps, like the Michelin maps in the Europe. And as the story goes, they designed that so people have more options to go and drive somewhere and live in a bed and breakfast and come back. And the driving back and forth will eventually increase to the wear and tear of the tires, and they can sell more tires as such. So that's why a company like tire company as Michelin went into and invested strategically into designing the maps and made people and connect with the things that they loved. It was a French company, so they loved food and wine, so they made sure eventually they were connecting bed and breakfast and good dining locations so people can go back and forth. And eventually, as we know the story goes, it led to the Michelin star restaurants, right? Means 1, 2, 3. It's actually not a star, it's a flower. That's a pretty interesting and pretty heretical strategy, I would say. What is that? What else can a tire company do as heretical as this? Or is anybody else in this industry or category trying to do something as far reaching as this? Because that's a pretty interesting strategy that I don't know how they brainstormed about it.
Well, back in the early days of back in the early Firestone days, Bridgestone bought Firestone in the 80s. So now we're a combined company under Bridgestone. But in the early days of Firestone, Firestone produced all kinds of products, from mattresses. There was Christmas albums. There was just all kinds of a wide range of products. And even today, Bridgestone has products in building products, bicycles, golf. So there's a lot of variety there. But in terms of kind of coming back to your question, one of the things that we're doing now in Europe is we have something called Web Fleet Solutions, where it is it's mapping and distribution software that fleets can use to help manage. So we not only help them manage their tires, but also we have a full suite of solutions that helps them with things like mapping routes. And I'm not I shouldn't speak too much on it because I don't know all the details of it, to be honest. But there's a lot of things that we do that's not just tires, but it's serving that whole customer in different ways.
And that's pretty interesting. So I know we are a little bit over time, but I think we getting a couple of more questions, and one of them is, we have all been seeing that guitar in the back. Are you going to play us a small tune or what?
No, that's not going to happen today.
No. We already are behind time, but at least it's there, and I do not know whether you had like, you can play something or maybe sing a little bit, but I don't want to put anybody on the block as such. I will be asking this question to almost all the speakers today, and been asking that to all earlier speakers too. You are in an amazing position right now where you are in the industry, in the company as such. There are many audience members who are starting their career, a little bit young designers or young strategists or researchers. Do you want to share some of the, on the hindsight in your entire career as such, some of the nuggets that made you who you are, some experiences or some of the elements that they should be or they should be knowing from your hard work and hard practices?
Yeah. Well, I'd say, you know, throughout my career, I've worked at, as I said, a number of different companies, you know, small companies and large companies, all on the corporate side. I'd say as to, you know, to very young designers to really take a broad look at all the different types of design opportunities that are out there, and try to find something that really resonates with what your interests are and what your passion is, but also what your skills and strong suits are. I went back and got my MBA because I felt that was an area of I wanted to not only know design, but I wanted to be able to know the marketing side, and I wanted to be able to know the business side. And so for me, that was a big learning opportunity for me. And you know, I chose the path that best fit with my strong suit, you know, my strongest skills and my interests. And I think that's really important for everybody, is to truly find out, you know, where your passion is and where your strengths are, and just be aware of those things.
Passion and strengths. That's pretty interesting as such. Maybe one last parting question, and then I would really let you go, and you can just be on the webinar for the entire time too. What is it in the last 9-8 weeks that we are in a shelter down that you learned about yourself that you did not knew?
Well, I was pretty amazed at how quickly the team and myself were able to adapt to working from home. You know, for myself, you know, having the laptop and doing a little bit of travel, the adjustment was relatively short. But for others on the team, you know, very used to working in the office and working together every day. So we do miss that daily face-to-face interaction, to be able to have critiques of designs, you know, face-to-face. But it really has been interesting to see how quickly we could get used to doing everything that we would normally do face-to-face, to be able to do that on web chats, and to be able to have really good productive critiques virtually. It's really been eye-opening.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I know we can go on and on, but somehow we will have to wait. Thank you again for your time, and it's very difficult to assume this room is people. So believe me, they are just like on. Thank you again. Feel free to be there for the rest of the time. You can just unmute or unvideo yourself, but thank you. And once again, congratulations on your wedding.
All right. Thank you very much.
Welcome.